So, einen wunderschönen guten Abend zusammen. Mein Name ist Alona Levina und ich begrüße Sie herzlich zu unserem Livestream Myanmar im Herzen. Es ist wirklich toll, dass Sie an diesem sonnigen Abend zu uns zugeschaltet habt und ich hoffe wirklich, dass Ihr Abend auch so sonnig ist wie bei uns in Krefeld. Denn ich habe was ganz Besonderes, beziehungsweise wir von der Leber haben für Sie was ganz Besonderes vorbereitet. Wir sprechen heute über Myanmar, logisch, mit einem Experten von vor Ort. Das ist Edwin, der seit Jahren wirklich in Myanmar lebt und uns somit Informationen aus der ersten Hand geben kann. Wir werden mit ihm gemeinsam über das Thema Myanmar, seine Kultur, seine Menschen, seine Highlights, aber vor allem natürlich auch über die aktuelle Lage vor Ort sprechen. Kurz zum Organisatorischen. Wir haben insgesamt für den Livestream circa 30 bis 45 Minuten eingeplant. Und der Livestream wird auf Englisch stattfinden. Das habe ich Ihnen auch schon in der E-Mail geschrieben, denn Edwin spricht kein Deutsch. Das sollte hoffentlich kein Problem sein. Falls Sie irgendetwas nicht verstanden haben oder falls Sie einfach eine Frage haben, können Sie während der gesamten Veranstaltung unsere Chat-Funktion nutzen. Dann werde ich die Frage sehen, wenn notwendig, sie auch übersetzen, sie an Edwin stellen und entsprechend ihn beantworten. Dann war es das eigentlich auch schon mit organisatorischen Sachen. Kurz zu meiner Person. Mein Name ist Alona Levina. Ich bin seit 9 Jahren bei Erlebe tätig, aktuell im Marketingbereich. Und ich habe damals 2012 als Reisespezialistin für Asien und zwar für Thailand gestartet. Das war auch tatsächlich meine allererste Fernreise, die ich mit Erlebe vorgenommen habe. Und das war wunderschön. Dann einige Jahre später habe ich auch Myanmar als Reiseland übernommen und habe dorthin auch 2 Reisen unternehmen können, und zwar einmal 2015 und einmal 2017. Ich bin der Meinung, dass man nach Myanmar mehrmals reisen muss, weil das Land ist riesig und es hat super viele Regionen, die spannend sind, super viele Highlights. Und so waren auch meine Reisen unterschiedlich gebaut. Ich habe die Haupthighlights gesehen. Ich war auch an den Orten abseits der üblichen touristischen Pfade, war aber auch am Strand baden. Das war auch toll. Und ich muss sagen, also für mich ist Myanmar schon eine Herzensangelegenheit und ich finde das super, dass wir diesen Livestream heute machen. Sie merken, dieser Livestream wird eine andere Art haben, einen anderen Charakter tragen als unsere sonstigen Veranstaltungen, weil wir doch immer versuchen, das Positive herauszuheben und ja, wir sprechen über die bereisbaren Länder, wir zeigen Ihnen die Highlights der Länder und wir zeigen Ihnen auch gerne, was Sie mit uns dort erleben können und was für Möglichkeiten Sie haben. In Myanmar ist es aktuell leider so, dass die Menschen vor Ort nicht so viele Möglichkeiten haben und auch darüber müssen wir unbedingt sprechen. Und ich würde sagen, das ist auch schon unser Stichpunkt. Ich würde gerne zu Englisch switchen. Ich hoffe, es ist für Sie in Ordnung. Wie gesagt, melden Sie sich per Chat, falls Sie Fragen haben sollten. Dann begrüße ich schon mal den Edwin. Mingalaba, Edwin, welcome.
Mingalaba, Alona.
Nice to see you, nice to see you. I told already our clients or our listeners, we have a couple of listeners there from all over Germany and I think Switzerland, Austria too. Welcome, guys. I told that you are living in Myanmar since some years, but maybe can you tell us the story behind that? So why did you move to Myanmar and what are you doing there currently?
Yeah, thank you, Alona, and thank you all the clients from Aleva to listen in today about Myanmar. My name is Edwin Brills. I'm Dutch, obviously. Been living in Myanmar for about 20 years now. And when you say, like, why did you move to Myanmar? It's clearly about the people. Like, I used to work in other countries in tourism in Southeast Asia. And the first time that I arrived in Myanmar in 1996, it felt like coming home just because of the people who are so warm and friendly, despite all the problems that they have in the country. And maybe the best reason to give for that is that in Burmese language, there's not even a word for tourist. There's only a word for guest. And that's how people receive anybody who's visiting the country.
That sounds really nice. And that's also what I definitely experienced there. The people are really nice. They are so curious, but honestly curious and really friendly. And of course, we will talk about the current situation in Myanmar. But before, we just assume that our listeners, they haven't been to Myanmar yet. So we would like to show you some regions of Myanmar and its people, its famous things. So we prepared a little presentation for you guys, and we will talk about each region for a bit before we will come to the main topic, the current situation. So I would say let us start with our first region, which is Yangon and Bago divisions. Well, Yangon is probably the city to come to visit Myanmar, the first stop. And actually, I have a picture of you there, Edwin, with Mark, with our travel specialist, Mark Azerian, who is sitting there and drinking a beer with you. What happened there?
Yangon is a good place to have a beer and just see life passing by. It's indeed like the city where most people start their trip. It's also the city where I'm living, and it's a good city to look different kind of people. You have an Indian town, you have a Chinatown, and you have the colonial area in downtown Yangon. And excellent for people watching. It's excellent to see all the colonial heritage buildings in the city center. And of course, it's the place to visit the Shwedagon Pagoda, which is one of the most important pagodas in the country. And I know many people always say, like, oh, we've seen too many temples. This one is special because probably 99% of the people who go there are not tourists. So if you just like people watching, the Shwedagon is a good place to go as well.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And in Yangon, I tried my first mohinga for breakfast. If you don't know, mohinga is a fish soup with some meat in it. It has amazingly intensive taste, and it's a typical Burmese breakfast. And yeah, it was really nice. And I could eat it, I think, every day. I loved it. It was really tasty. Okay, then let's go to the next region. We have here Mandalay Division. What do we have there? I think in Mandalay Division actually is the most important or the most famous thing of Myanmar. The famous highlight is, of course, the temple field of Bagan.
Yeah, Mandalay, it's the middle of the country. It's a beautiful area. It's a lot of countryside surrounding the big city. And Mandalay was famous because it used to be the palace, the royal family. They were living there. And you still feel a bit of that royal atmosphere in the way people speak, in the way people behave. Then when you're talking about food is fantastic in Mandalay because it's the middle of the country. So food from every region comes together there. Mohinga is famous, of course, like you mentioned before. Another thing which is excellent in Mandalay is the barbecue. There's a lot of barbecue stations, they call. And actually the barbecue stations, they go together with a lot of like other vegetable dishes and noodles, etc.
What about Bagan? Because Bagan belongs also to the Mandalay division, like region-wise. So I think it's one of the dream places for each traveler because it's a huge temple field of over 35 square kilometers. And it's amazingly empty always, not only now. I think it always has some space where you just alone, surrounded by temples and the green trees, which is really, really beautiful. I think the next region we have is your favorite one because it's Shan State. I just assume that it's the favorite one because it's so huge and has so many people, so many different highlights in it.
Yes, indeed. Shan State, it's huge. There's a lot of different tribes and it has a lot of influence from Thailand as well as from China. The different tribes, they have often different languages, different foods, and it's a perfect place to travel around and also good for long trekkings or biking trips. Shan State, I mean, if you look at food, one of the famous dishes is the Shan noodles. It's a very simple dish, but really, really good. It's noodles mixed with chicken and a tomato, fresh tomatoes which are growing on in the lake. People use it often as a breakfast dish, but you can definitely also eat it for lunch and for dinner.
Yes, I think Inle Lake is also like a word because it's a completely interesting area with houses built on water and people living on water and supplying themselves from water, because Edwin just mentioned that tomatoes, they are growing there. So you can see the whole tomato plantages. Is it the word plantages? And yes, you have many activities there. The next state we have is the Mon state, which is probably my favorite. I think so. Yeah, it's my favorite. What about you, Edwin?
I love Mon State. It's a small state. It has a long cultural history. Actually, the Mon people are the first people who invented that beautiful script, the Myanmar script, which looks a little bit like a lot of circles. They're good at celebrating the water festival. Once a year in April, there's the New Year celebration. And for 4 days, what people do is everybody comes together and is throwing water at each other. It's a big party. It starts in the morning already at 9, and at 6 o'clock it's finished. Everybody goes home, goes to bed, and is fresh again the next morning to continue throwing with water.
Yeah, you can also see the picture of my former colleague John with the guide, and he had luck visiting the Waterfest in Mon State. I think it was 2013, so probably he was one of the very few tourists there, as Myanmar has been discovered. I think at least for European tourism, it was 2013, but later on, and then the next years, Myanmar grew as a touristic destination. I also had luck and could visit a festival at the Golden Rock. You can see it on this slide. This beautiful golden rock with beautiful sunset, and there was a big religious festival as the Golden Rock is one of the most important pilgrim stations in Myanmar. So it was like a couple of days where people were sleeping everywhere on the square and praying together, singing songs together. It was really an amazing atmosphere to see it with your own eyes. So once it's possible again, I really recommend you to go and to see it. Next to Mon State, we have a Kayin State, which is, I think, mostly famous for its nature because it has like very nice hills, rice fields, and so on.
Yes, indeed, Kayin State. It's very long. It's very lush. There's a lot of jungle in Kayin State, and the Kayin people are known like people from the nature, people from the jungle. And when you visit Kayin State, it's fantastic to do walks to see all the limestone mountains which are coming up out of the paddy fields, or to go a short bike trip or go a short trip by kayak through the paddy fields. Kayin are nature people, so also the food is very much focused on nature, on herbs that people can find in the jungle, a lot of vegetarian food, and it's really good. It's very different again than the food in, for example, Mon State or in other places of the country. And I think that's one of the good things about visiting Myanmar. There's so many flavors, as the country is a mix of different people.
Definitely, I can totally agree to that. As you can see, the pictures with people on this slide, they are done by me. I had luck to celebrate my birthday actually with Myanmar people in Kayin State, and also had some meals in several families there. And sometimes I didn't really know, should I eat it now? What is it actually? Is it some kind of a root? So it was really weird, but it tasted perfectly well, and I didn't have any problems with that. So it was really good. Tasting cuisine from different countries is always a fun thing. Myanmar is indeed not only about culture, it's always about people, but it's not always about nature or temples. It has also very nice beaches, and one of the most beautiful beaches is the Napoli Beach.
Yes, that's in Rakhine State. Rakhine State is also like a very separate state from the rest of the country. It used to be a complete separate kingdom. And there you have one of the famous beaches, which is Napoli Beach. I always think it's one of the best beaches in Southeast Asia, except if you want a lot of nightlife, because it's a very quiet area. You have palm trees, you have fantastic food, but about 11 o'clock in the evening, everybody goes to sleep.
And you also have a lot of seafood there, which is typical, of course, for a sea region. But it's amazing. The prices in Myanmar are not that high, and I think you can not find like that much seafood for like not much money, and it's amazingly tasty. So I can recommend it to you definitely also. Now that we talked about the people and the highlights of Myanmar, that's how I know Myanmar personally. So that's how I got to know it 2017 for the last time. And I hope not for the last time at all, but for my last trip. And of course, we want to talk about how the things has changed, because it has been quite a rough time for Myanmar and for Myanmar people in the last months. So Edwin, we talked with you about Myanmar situation in April. We had a digital fair, Digitale Reisemesse, in April, the first one. And we had a small presentation about Myanmar too. And Edwin already explained us some things that happened till then with some perspectives, whether there are some perspectives or not. So Edwin, maybe you could explain our listeners the current situation and what has changed in the past 6 months since we last talked in April.
Okay, the current situation is since we talked in April, the resistance against the military from the military coup continued. Like, for people who didn't follow the whole story, like since February, there was a coup d'etat on the 1st of February, whereby the military took brutally over the country. There was an elected government before, but the military didn't agree with them. Since then, people massively gone into the streets to protest against the military, and they showed all different kind of ways to make sure that they don't agree. The military have been retaliating against it, and there's been a constant struggle and fight between the military and the resistance up till now.
I mean, it's not the only crisis the world is the whole world is dealing with, because I think everyone is talking since 1.5 years also about COVID-19. It influenced the complete life of us, all processes we have and all areas of our life. Like, we need to wear a mask, we need to hold distance to our people. So how is the corona situation in Myanmar? Would you say that it is under control? And which measurements are there?
Yeah, no, it's not at all under control. Since 1.5 years ago, that time we had the elected government, they tried to keep it under control and keep corona out of the country, because they said we don't have enough medical facilities to really deal with the big wave. They did quite well, and then in January they ordered vaccines from the Indian government, but then came the coup d'etat. So that meant that a lot of civilians and also people working for the government went on strike. So the whole medical system collapsed. The government system collapsed, while people continued to do working as a private doctor. COVID then, especially the last Delta virus, hit very hard, and we got a situation that people could not go to a hospital, they couldn't get medicines, or they couldn't get oxygen. And while they were trying privately to arrange things, the military was still shooting at people and going against the people. So at the moment, COVID is not in control, unfortunately. And we have seen a big wave in Yangon, and that's now going through the rest of the country.
That's really sad to hear, because I think the situation in Europe, or the most European countries, is hopefully getting better. So we have this perspective, this positive thought, and it's really sad that it cannot happen all over the world, and then especially in Myanmar. So at the moment you're in the Netherlands, you're in your hometown, I suppose. So when was the last time you've been to Europe? And I know obviously there are so many differences between the cultures, between the ways of living, the flats, the houses, the streets between Myanmar and the Netherlands or Germany. But what do you think, which differences hit you hard right now? What did you notice especially right now?
Okay, the last time I've been to the Netherlands, I'm living in the south of the Netherlands. The last time I was here was 1.5 years ago. So when I arrived back 3 weeks ago, one of the big differences I noticed is that in Myanmar, everybody's wearing a face mask. There's not much possibility to go to a hospital, so people are very much aware about keeping distance, wearing a face mask, etc. It's very different in the Netherlands. Other things that just personally realized for me, how good it is to be in Europe and how safe it is in Europe. Here, when I talk on the internet, when I look on my phone, I don't need to have any protective software, because like I have in Myanmar, where the military are listening in. Here, I know like I can walk on the street, everything is safe. So those are things that I start to realize, like we can be very happy to live in Europe at this moment.
That's true, and that's just scary that the basic things like internet access or like security in the street are lacking in Myanmar. Like that's really weird, and it's really tragic, and the whole situation is just heartbreaking. But are there any positive aspects, or if you can call them positive, are there any positive things about Myanmar right now?
Yeah, what I see, and that like I saw from the beginning, from the 1st of February when the coup d'etat started, is that the whole population is coming together as one. And of course, everybody knows like a lot of history, and the history with Rohingya and with other tribes. And now everybody's coming together to fight together for democracy. And I think that's very good to see. And I think it's of course, it's a very hard struggle at the moment, but people are so united, and people are so convinced they want a full democracy, that they will not even accept the military to have a part in the parliament like they did in the past. Because in the past, whenever there was an election, the military already would take 25% of the seats automatically. And now people already say like, no, that's not going to happen again in the future. Of course, it's a hard struggle, and nobody knows how long it will take, but people are united to fight for democracy. Another good thing what I see at people always is like, Myanmar has always been the most generous country. People share whatever they have. And you see that especially in times of crisis, with the military coup, but also with poverty or with COVID, everybody's trying to help each other. So those are positive things that are coming out of this crisis.
So it's always the people, basically. It's always the people in Myanmar, which is like the main highlight of the country. And Edwin, I already asked you this question in April, and I will ask this question now, because now you are in the Netherlands, and you just said, oh my God, it's so nice. You should treasure it that you live in Europe. It's so secure and so on. So are you ever going back? What is the plan?
Oh, yes. I'm planning to fly back on the 2nd of November. Because it's very good to be in Europe, and I needed a bit of like a break to get more energy, because I'm sure that the coming year will be quite a big struggle. But definitely I'm going back, because I mean, Myanmar is now my home. The country has given me a lot over the past years, a lot of joy, like to set up things and to work and discover there. So I consider it a bit like, okay, this is a bad year, so this is the year to give back.
That's really nice to hear, and I think, yeah, it's a good thing, and the things you do there, we'll come to them later. They're just great, and they're so important. I think for many travelers, Myanmar is still a hidden gem, so it's still on a wish list, on a bucket list, or whatever you call it. So are there any perspectives for travelers to go to Myanmar? Is it even possible to get a visa at the moment?
No, at the moment it's not possible to get a visa or even to book a normal flight. These are all still the measures from the previous government, actually, who put them in place to control the corona. The military at the moment, they basically like, they're incompetent and they don't know what to do. So as a result, it's also like not possible to fly to the country at the moment. Difficult to say when it's possible, but definitely keep it on your bucket list, because even if you have to wait a bit longer, it will definitely be worth it. The mentality of the people is not changing, and I think it will only be better.
Totally agree with that, and I think it's, as I told you, it's worth many visits, at least three. Tourism also has become a really important part of the economy, of course, and many people started working at the hotels as a tour guide or at tour operators, or basically in tourism. So what happens to them at the moment? Because do they have jobs? Are there any perspectives for them? What do they do?
Myanmar people are very creative, and they're very survivors. I mean, there's not a social security system like we have in Europe. So we've seen like once Corona hit a couple of months and people realized like, okay, this is not going to be over very soon, people start finding other jobs. So I know of guides who start working as an English teacher, who starts setting up their English classes. I know another guide who start like having a course in copywriting and does copywriting for advertisements. A lot of people have started selling things online. One of the popular one amongst guides was cooking food and sell it online. But also other people like start working in a pharmacy, do delivery of baby clothes and baby food, etc. So people are creative, but also all the guides, they continue to tell me like, there's nothing more that I want is than having tourists come back and visit my country and show my country.
That sounds really well, and it's really actually nice because we talked about this topic yesterday, Edwin and I was really impressed how creative people are, and that it's not stop of the life what happens there in the moment. So people are still trying to get a job. Some businesses are still running, so it's really, really important. But we also saw on the pictures many people living on the countryside or in some villages which are really, really hardly accessible. So what happens to them now at the moment, because they are not in the big city when they can run a business?
Exactly, like people like in the countryside, they have it more difficult. I mean, some people try to grow some vegetables so they can get some food, but there's not many other jobs. So there is at the moment a real like problem with poverty and an acute problem that people need food and people need healthy food. So that's why we started a campaign to help people in the countryside, the poorest family, to donate food to them so they can eat for a month, they can feed their children with healthy food.
So how do you find the families, the right families who are in need?
We have a big network of offices because our clients travel throughout the country, so we have offices throughout the country, and these people like the managers and the guides, they're in the middle of the community, so they know very well which families really need support and which ones can take care of themselves. People are very generous in Myanmar, but they're also very honest. So if they don't need anything, they will not ask for help. But we see now more and more places that families will come to our offices and say like, we heard that you sometimes have possibilities to donate food. Please think about us the next time when it's possible.
That's a really nice initiative because you don't only give people money, you give them really food they need to live, basically. And actually myself and also my colleagues at Täler, we donated some weeks ago to this campaign. And we receive really like nice pictures of happy people with food. So we know that the food comes to the people who are really in need and not just goes somewhere you don't know where. So I think it's a really, really important thing. And I wanted to show you some of the pictures. I think you can see them now. Those are the pictures we received from Edwin. But Edwin, like, what do they have there? They have their eggs, they have potatoes, some milk, oil, so basic products. I think also onions and garlic, very important in Myanmar, as Edwin said. So what can you actually buy for like, I don't know, 30 euros, 50 euros? What can you buy for this money?
Indeed, we're buying all the products locally. So we're not only helping the family, we're also helping the farmers in that region because we buy the products from them. We give like rice, which is the staple food, of course. So a bag of rice is, for example, for a whole month for 4 people, it's about $40. Then we have cooking oil, we have onions. We give also some cash money to the family so they can buy fresh vegetables from the market. And with that also supporting the local farmers in that area. All the overhead cost is taken care of by us. So when people give a donation, the whole amount goes for food for a family. And for €100, you can feed a family of 4 people for a whole month.
And actually, I have the first questions in the chat, and I'm really glad that some of you already ask, how can we help people? Because that's basically the next question we want to answer. Can you recommend any way of helping and supporting the people in Myanmar? Or how can we help the people in Myanmar?
So we started, I think 3 or 4 months ago, we looked at like, how can we support people who need it most? And the answers from all these offices came like, people need food. So we started a food campaign, so where people from Germany can donate food. We set up a GoFundMe campaign, so it's easier to donate from Germany. And we did like a lot of other activities around the world to collect money for food. So the moment that like money is donated, within like 1 or 2 weeks, we deliver the food package to the families who need it most at that moment.
So basically, if you just click on the link, you can see that it's the real campaign. It's the campaign of Edwin, and so it's for real. It will reach the people. It will reach the right people. So it's the good thing. And I think even with the little money, we can do good things. We can donate, and it will, make people. First of all, give them some food and make them happy at least for some time. Edwin, how many families did you help so far? Do you have this answer?
So far, I think we helped about 300 families, providing 3 meals a day for at least 4 people in the family. So we calculated the other day, we arranged for over 100,000 meals during the last months.
And it's throughout Myanmar, so you're not concentrating on only one region. You always go to different regions.
Yes, it's throughout the country where we have the offices and good contacts there.
I think that we're actually almost done. We are almost out of time. We have talked about so many things, but you can actually talk about Myanmar really a lot. So there are so many things to discuss, not only about the current situation, but also about Myanmar, its highlights, and so on. Edwin, is there anything you would like to say in the end?
For people who are listening and who haven't been to Myanmar, keep it on your bucket list. It will be worth visiting. And then for Aleba and Aleba staff, thank you so much for all the donations in the past, all the support in the past. It really goes a long way. And I spoke with our officers, and they really are very happy that Aleba continues to support.
Yeah, we're definitely glad to support too, because it's such an amazing country, and we really want to come back. So we really want to offer it to our clients. And I have to say, I've been to different countries with Aleba, and Myanmar was always special. So it's special because of its people, and I think it's really a nice country to visit. So guys, wait a bit, and then you can go. There is a next message I want to read. We're grateful for our 3 trips between 2015 and 2018, and really hope to be able to go back one day. So there are really loyal Myanmar travelers between us. Really nice. Edwin, thanks a lot that you have been here and that you had your time for us today. And thanks that you are raising such good campaigns, because it's not, you could have stayed in Europe where everything is safe and so on. Thanks for things you do. It's really cool. Then I would say, thanks a lot to everyone who listened. Vielen Dank für Ihre Teilnahme und dass Sie so fleißig dabei geblieben sind. Wenn Sie mithelfen, würden wir uns sehr freuen. Und noch mehr würden sich natürlich die Menschen vor Ort freuen. Wir sehen uns bei den nächsten Livestreams oder auf der digitalen Reisemesse. Wir veranstalten nämlich noch ein größeres Event am 7. November. Das darf ich wahrscheinlich noch gar nicht verraten, aber jetzt können Sie schon mal das Datum speichern. Und ansonsten vielen Dank für Ihre Teilnahme, für Ihre Spende. Vielen Dank. Tschüss zusammen.